Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild, a team that continues to defy expectations. In that this past season, they still had over 100 points, and that is with a large cap penalty. Now, that cap penalty for the next 2 years is still pretty crippling if Bill Guerin wants to make additions to the team. The dead cap money for this year and next year, $14,743,588. That is the price for buying out Parisi, for buying out Suter. And whether you do or don't agree that that money was worth buying them out, the Minnesota Wild are still, dealing with this as best that they can. I do think that it has influenced their ability to, get that depth that they need. But I think it also provides some opportunity if you're a young player and you're looking for your chance to play. Minnesota might be the best place to be because they need more guys on entry level contracts and cheap contracts, especially over this next 2 years. Their cap space currently shows as $8,281,412 on Cap Friendly. However, it's a little deceptive. Philip Gustafson is getting paid. He's a restricted free agent. He could make, I would say, $4 million plus on this next deal. It could be $5 million plus. It really depends on negotiations between the team and the player. Kalen Addison, Brandon Duhaime need to get paid as well. I don't think either of them are going to get a ton of money, but Addison, he could get a decent chunk of change depending on what Minnesota sees as his upside and what he's able to demand in his contract negotiations. Duhaime is going to arbitration, so I expect that to be resolved over the coming days. But yeah, this is a team that over the last 3 seasons has been at a 100-plus point pace. And again, I have to say pace because of the 2020-2021 season being 56 games long. But the problem is that over those 3 seasons, they've gone out in the first round each time against Vegas in 2021 and 7. And then in 6 games the last 2 years, first in 2022 against St. Louis, and this past spring, 6 games against Dallas. So they need to figure this out. And one thing they need to figure out is goals. They need more of them. They were 22nd in goals for this past season, 7th in goals against. So keeping the puck out of the net, they were pretty good at that. The defensive side of it, absolutely. But it is getting the puck into the opposition's net, right? The loss of Matt Dumba may be felt on the blue line. This is where Brock Faber will get his chance to prove he can do what the team believes he can. And again, even if they had wanted to bring back Dumba, they did not have the cap space to do so. So we look at this forward group again, remembering, that you're going to have more cheaper players in your lineup because of that cap issue. On the left side, you're looking at Kaprizov, you're looking at Johansson. Johansson opting to stick around, and that was a good signing for them. Absolutely good value there. I like Dewar, and Maroon is with the team now from Tampa Bay. Again, you get some cheap depth with Pat Maroon. Samuel Walker got called up a bit last season, played okay. We'll see if he gets called up this season and what his role is if he does. There's Beckman, there's Ogren, a first-round draft pick from last year, I believe, and Firstov is there as well. So down the middle, you're looking at Hartman, who's on an expiring contract. So Maroon is expiring in 2024. So is Hartman, and Hartman looking to have a big season. This past year, not as strong as the year previous. The year previous to this point looks like a career year. So this year he's going to try to show that, yeah, no, this is how I can play. I just had an off year. Eriksson Ek, excellent two-way forward there for them down the middle. Freddie Gaudreau is one of the more underrated players, I think, especially considering, a Minnesota Wild team to get some good coverage. Gaudreau, I don't think, gets all the credit. Rossi could be key here. If Marco Rossi's 100%, if he can show that progression at the National Hockey League level, Rossi could end up being an ace in the hole for them. Maybe he doesn't end up playing down the middle. Maybe you put him on the wing in order to help with some scoring depth elsewhere. We'll see what they do. Patan is here, a veteran at this point. He can play fourth line here and there. Lettieri's been added. Lettieri can play fourth line minutes as well. He spent a lot of time in the AHL too, so we'll see where everything lines up there for him. Then you get to the right side, you've got Zuccarello, expiring contract for him. Zuccarello, Kaprizov, absolutely great chemistry with them. I think Zuccarello extends his time in Minnesota. Maybe he signs a one-year deal. Maybe he does what Pavelski's been doing in Dallas, just sign the one-year deal, the one-year extension. Because, again, I think Zuccarello's playing some of the best hockey of his career right now. Not right now. Right now it's summer. Matt Boldy, excellent young forward, signed to a nice long-term deal, and going to be a Minnesota Wild player for a long time. The guy's a star. You've got Marcus Foligno on an expiring contract as well. Foligno is a leader on the ice, and the offense, when it's there, it's great, but when it's not, he's still doing a lot to help them out. You've got Duhaime, as mentioned. He is currently an unsigned RFA. Lucchini's been added, so Lucchini got into some games this past season. You got Fogarty, Sweeney, and Novak might be one of those curious ones too, but Novak coming back from injury probably needs to spend the whole year with the Iowa Wild rather than playing for the Minnesota Wild. So there are some intriguing options for them up front. Again, young players might get a better opportunity with Minnesota than they might get somewhere else because those young players save them on cap money. On the blue line, you've got Middleton. You've got Spurgeon as well. Spurgeon also, I would say, is in that underrated category. Brodin and Faber. And again, Faber really be the key on the blue line. If he comes in and plays as well as expected, could be great. If he has his struggles, it could make it a real challenge for Minnesota to make the playoffs this year. You've got Merrill. As mentioned, you've got Addison. If Addison's defensive game has improved, watch for Evason to play him more. We'll see what happens there. You've also got Dakota Mermis. You've got Goligoski, who's on an expiring deal. Goligoski's been solid for the Minnesota Wild. And Lambos. Lambos, a prospect. Just figured I'd throw him on the board. The blue line, not a ton of depth here. This is definitely a team that would feel it very quickly if there was a major injury on the blue line, which can happen. We know this. So they'll be hoping for the best of health for everybody. Guerin crossing his fingers on that. Now, in net, it's Gustafson's net in my eyes, although Fleury's still here. Fleury's on the last year of his contract. Maybe Fleury has a big bounce-back season. But at this stage in his career, the odds of him having that bounce-back year 20 years after his draft year, probably not. But we've written off Fleury before to our detriment. So we'll see if it's a 1-2 where maybe Fleury plays 40 games and Gustafson gets 42 starts, or if it's more of a 50-32 or a 60-22. We'll see what happens, but they have to sign Gustafson first and see how much of the cap space that eats up. And again, Addison Duhaime out there as well. Now, Wallstedt is the goalie of the future, and he is expected to take over the net. I would say that when Fleury's contract runs out at the end of this year, Wallstedt becomes the backup to Gustafson, or maybe he just straight out wins the starter's job. They've also got Zane McIntyre for depth at the Iowa level. Zane McIntyre, good AHL goaltender, NHL upside, probably done at this point. But there's late bloomers in net, but usually not at this point. So it is going to be interesting to see with the Minnesota Wild what ends up happening this season. Are they going to be a playoff team? How much can they avoid that injury bug? Because again, they don't really have the depth to absorb major injuries. If Kaprizov was out for, say, a month, I don't know that they could absorb that. If Spurgeon, Brodin got hurt, I don't know that they could absorb that either. And that can be the difference between being a playoff team or not. Can they make it 4 years in a row of 100-plus points? And are we at the stage now where Minnesota's doing well in the regular season? Fine, but wake me up when the postseason starts. Are we at that level with Minnesota? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through and you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.